and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my summer book haul, so let's just pretend that we're not nearing the end of September and that summer was over a while ago, at least in my part of the world. And let's just focus on the books that I acquired since my last book haul, which I think was probably back in May or something like that. So these are the books that I've added to my TBR over the course of the summer. I actually have quite the stack of physical books this time. This is more than I usually acquire or buy, but over the past few months I've had 2 gift cards that I've needed to use before they expired. And then when I was on vacation this summer, my mom and we went to some used bookstores. So I got some books from there. I think 3 of these books were from that trip. So they were super cheap. So even though, you know, it's quite a stack of books, I haven't actually spent a ton of money on these. And then I'm also going to go through some ebooks that I've added to my TBR lately. As usual, I'm not going to go through everything because I mentioned before I tend to add a lot of stuff to my Kindle, a lot of freebies and things like that, and I do that with the intention of reading them at some point, but they don't necessarily have the highest priority. So the books I'm going to mention here are books or the books that I'm the most excited about, that I might prioritize more than those others, and that I probably would have bought at some point even if, you know, I didn't find them on sale, which I did with most of these. But yeah, let's just start going through these books. I'm trying to be quick. I don't know a ton about all these books, so I'm just going to quickly go through them so you can see what I might be reading in the coming months or, you know, years, since it tends to take me a while to get to books. But let's start with the first one, and that is Black Sun by Rebecca Roanhorse. This is an adult fantasy, I'm pretty sure, and it's the first in a series. I don't actually know what the series is called, but I know this is the first book. I've heard really good things about this series, which is why I'm interested in reading this. I also really like this cover. So yeah, don't know a ton about this, but I'm very excited. Then we have this book that I'm also very excited about. This is A Memory Called Empire by Arcady Martin. This is, I think, adult sci-fi, if I'm not mistaken. This is also the first in the series, and I know at least the second book is out as well. So if I enjoy this one, I'll probably try and get to the second one soon as well. Again, I've heard a ton of good things about this one. Again, don't know a ton about it, but I have a feeling that maybe I can expect some like good political intrigue in this one, which is one of my favorite things in like fantasy and sci-fi. So I have high hopes. Then we have Darius the Great Deserves Better, and this is the sequel to Darius the Great Is Not Okay, which is a book that I own but that I haven't read yet. And because I haven't read it yet, I don't know too much about this series. I know it's YA contemporary, and I think it's about a boy who goes to Iran, I think, to visit his grandparents there. And I think it just deals a lot with like identity and stuff like that. And I've just, again, heard a ton of great things about, especially the first book. But I figured, you know, if I like that one, I'll want to read the second one as well. And I have high hopes that I will enjoy it. So, you know, I just got this one as well. So now it's just a matter of actually getting to these books. Then we have The Lost Book of the White by Cassandra Clare and Wesley Chu. And this one I actually ordered, like, I think probably back in January or February. It was very early in the year, and then it didn't get to me until this summer, I think July or August. So I'd almost given up hope on ever receiving this one, but then, you know, suddenly it arrived. This is the sequel to The Red Scrolls of Magic, which is a part of the Shadowhunter universe. This particular series is about Alec and Magnus, which are my favorites in the Shadowhunter universe. So I'm excited to read this book. I really loved the Red Scrolls of Magic. So hopefully this one will be just as good. So hopefully I can read it soon. Then we have the 3 books that I got at the used bookstores that I went to, and the first one of those is In a Dark Wood by Ruth Ware. I basically got this one because I've been meaning to try something by this author, and her books don't tend to be available here, and I also haven't found them at my audiobook service, so I haven't actually had the chance to read anything by Ruth Ware. And then I came across this book, so I decided to just get it, even though this is not the one that I've heard the most positive things about. And it's not necessarily the one that I'm the most interested in, I think. But I figured it was an opportunity to maybe just check out one of her books and see if I like her writing styles and things like that. So I don't actually know anything about this one. I just know that it's like a mystery or thriller or something like that. And I've just heard there's just a lot of buzz around this author in general. So like I said, I just want to try it out and see what I think. Then we have just a huge book. I don't know how many pages this one is. It's almost 1,000 pages. This book, I have it in Norwegian, so in Norwegian it's Kjempenes Fall. It's written by Ken Follett, I think that's how you say his name. I think the English title is Fall of Giants. And again, don't know a ton about this one. I know it's the first in a series, which is why I got it. I also got it because this is just an author that I've been meaning to check out for years. And then I've just been super intimidated by the size of the books. But then I found it for super cheap price. So I figured I'd just take the opportunity, get the first one, hopefully, work up the courage to actually tackle this book at some point and just see what I think. I just know that this is historical fiction, I'm pretty sure. I think it's set during World War I, or it starts during World War I. I think we follow a number of families throughout probably several years or something. That's kind of what I'm assuming. It sounds like something that I might enjoy, so hopefully I will. But yeah, no idea when I'll get to this one. And then the final book that I got from the used bookstores that I went to is, I tried to say his name how I would pronounce it in Norwegian, Fredrik Backman. I think you probably say it a little bit different in Swedish, but it's pretty close, I think. Again, I have the Norwegian version of this book, so this is En mann ved navn Ove. I think the English title is A Man Called Ove or something like that. I'm not 100% sure. Again, don't know too much about what this book is about. I think it's about an older guy who's maybe kind of grumpy or something like that, and it's about unexpected friendships or something, and it's supposed to be very heartwarming. I basically picked this up because I've been meaning to read something from this author. This is actually an author, and this doesn't actually happen very often, but it's a book or an author that is popular here in Norway, pretty popular anyway, and it's also quite popular on BookTube. Like I said, that doesn't really happen very often. The books that I hear about on BookTube and that I'm interested often aren't very popular here. So I found this one. I found actually several books by this author at this bookstore that I went to, but I decided to just go with this one because this book was just in very good condition. It looks new, basically, so I think I'll go with this one. I'm excited. I don't know if his books are for me, but I'm excited to try. Then we have 2 more physical books. These are also books that I got from using a gift card. And the first one of those is Holy Sister by Mark Lawrence, and this is the 3rd book in the Book of the Ancestor series. I have actually the first 2 books in the series already. I have read the first book, I enjoyed it, so I know I want to read the rest of the series at some point, and this is the final book, I think. So now I have the whole trilogy. It's actually surprisingly short for a final book in a fantasy series. This is just 340 pages. So I was a little surprised by that. It's a lot shorter than the other 2 books in the series, actually. This series is about a young girl who is raised or trained by, a group of nuns. I don't remember too many details from the first book anymore because it's been a while since I read it. So I'll probably reread the first book before I continue with the rest of the series. But now I have, all the books, and I'm ready for when the day comes that I'm going to pick up the series again. And then finally, we have also a pretty big book. This is A Feast for Crows by George R. Martin, and this is the fourth book in the A Song of Ice and Fire series that I am slowly making my way through. I read part 2 of the third book earlier this year, and so this is the next book that I'm reading in the series. So I figured, it was time for me to actually get it, so I have it on my shelf for when the day comes that I want to continue with the series. This has just been a very slow journey for me. I started to read the series, I think, back in 2014. And I've only now reached the fourth book. So, it's taking me a while with this series, but at least now I'm ready for whenever I want to continue. That was the physical books. Now let's go through the ebooks. And now I'm not just going to look at my computer a lot because, have all my notes here. The first ebook that I'm going to mention is A Master of Gin by T. Jelly Clark. This is a fantasy book. I think it's adult fantasy. I know it's set in Cairo, and that's pretty much all I know about it. I also know it's the first in the series, and I've heard great things about this one. I think Amrita was the first one I heard talk about this series. But I've heard, good things from other people as well, so I'm super excited to get to this one. Then, again, you're probably used to this by now. Most of the ebooks I'm going to mention are romances, because that's the majority of what I read as ebooks. So the next 2 books are 2 romance books by the same author. We have Stupid Love and Awkward Love by Riley Hart. And this is the first 2 books in a series called Stumbling into Love. This is contemporary romance, this series. And Stupid Love, it seems to be about 2 neighbors who are kind of annoyed by each other while also having this anonymous flirt going on because one of them sent a question to this dating advice thing and the other one just happens to be the one who is answering those questions or something like that. It sounds really fun. And then Awkward Love is about a guy who's just super awkward when it comes to dating, and then one day he finds himself in a situation where he's bidding for a date at this charity auction, and the other main character is the one he ends up going on a date with. So that one also sounds really fun. Then we have Redemption by Garrett Lee, and this is the first book in a series called Darkest Skies. And it seems to be about a guy who's just out of prison, and he ends up falling for his boss, I think. In the blurb it says that Redemption is an angsty standalone romance novel with second chances, found family, friends to lovers, and buckets of hurt comfort-themed loveliness. So apparently this is both the first in a series and a standalone. Don't really know how that works, but I'm going to assume that, the next books in the series are probably about different people or something like that. So sounds like something that could be right up my alley. Then we have Someday by Emma Scott. This is a standalone contemporary book. It seems to be about a guy who works for a really rich family and he ends up falling for the son in this family. And I think, the father or the rest of the family or something, they aren't too happy about that. I think this one might be a little angsty. That's what I've heard. But yeah, I've also heard good things about this one, so I'm excited to read it. And then we have a book that I've also heard great things about, in particular from Lana. I know she loves this book, or this series, I think. It's A Light Amongst Shadows by Kelly York and Rowan Altwood. And this is the first book in the series called Dark is the Night. I think it's YA paranormal romance, something like that. I also think it's historical. I think it takes place at a school for boys, and that is a setting that just piques my interest. But just Lana has talked about this several times, I know she loves it. And I've heard good things about this one in general, and it just sounds like something that I'm going to enjoy, so excited to try this one, hopefully soon. Then we have Origin by A.J. Sherwood and Jocelyn Drake. This is the first book in a series called Scales and Spells. And what I know about this one is that it's fantasy romance. It's the first in a fantasy romance series involving dragons, which sounds fun. Then we have one that I'm very excited about, and that is, let's see if I can pronounce this right, Kolkey by K.M. Newhold. Probably didn't say that title right, have no idea how you're supposed to pronounce it. But this is the first book in the Four Bears Construction series. And this is a series that I've just heard a ton of good things about. I keep seeing the books everywhere. I've been meaning to check them out. Now I have the first book, so hopefully I can do that soon. This one I think, or this particular book, I think is another book about like flirting with someone anonymous online. And that, you know, you may also know that person in real life. I like that scenario, so, you know, it sounds like fun. Then we have The Fantastic Fluke by Sam Burns, and this is the first book in a series that I think is also called The Fantastic Fluke. And this is a fantasy romance series, and in the blurb it says, a lost fox, a gorgeous ghost, and an unlikely partnership to stop a murderer. Sounds intriguing, so I'm excited to try it. Then we have Say You'll Be Nine by Lucy Lennox, and this is a standalone contemporary romance. The blurb doesn't give too much away, but I think this one has the fake dating trope. That one could always be fun. And this one is just another one that I've heard great things about in general, so, you know, I want to check it out. Then we have one that I'm super excited about, and it's Silent Sin by A.J. Russell. And this one I think is historical fiction set in the 1920s. Not 100% sure about the time period, but I think we're at the beginning of the 1900s. And I think in this one we're in Hollywood, and I think this is a romance between an actor and his driver, something like that. I heard the author talk about this book in a podcast a while ago, and just hearing her talk about it just made me so excited to read it, so super excited about this one. Then we have another one that I'm very excited about, and that is Slippery Creatures by K.J. Charles, and this is the first book in the Will Darling Adventure series. I already own the second book in this series, so now I'm all set for when I want to, or when I get to this series, which I hope is soon, because I just want to read all the K.J. Charles books, really. K.J. Charles wrote one of my favorite books that I've read this year, so I'm just excited to read everything by this author. This one I'm going to assume, since it is K.J. Charles, I'm going to assume that it is historical romance. And yeah, like I said, I just want to read everything by the author, really. So now I have the first two books in this series, so I'm ready to go. Then we have Roommate by Sarina Bowen. Don't know much about this one, but I'm going to assume it's about roommates. And the main reason I got this one is that I read my first Sarina Bowen book in August, I think it was. That was Top Secret, that she co-wrote with another author, and I just really enjoyed it. So now I just want to read more by this author, basically. So when I found this one, I got it. Then we have a book by another author that I've read from before and enjoyed. This one is A Fairy of Bones and Gold by Haley Turner. I read my first book by this author earlier this year. I really liked it. I in particular like this author's writing style, so, you know, I want to read more. This book is the first in another series by the author. This series is called Soulbound. I don't know, again, a ton. I just know that this is paranormal romance and that I'm excited to check it out. So, then we have Digging Deep by Jay Hogan. This is a contemporary romance. Again, don't know a ton, but I think I saw in the blurb that this one has, like, one of the main characters in this book has Crohn's disease. And I think that is being discussed, or it is like a theme in this book, which sounds interesting. I don't feel like we get a lot of books that discusses themes like that, in particular in romance, so I think that could be really good. Then we have The Jock by Tal Bauer, and this is as you can probably guess from the title and the cover. This is a sports romance. That is not necessarily my favorite subgenre in romance, but lately I've just heard a ton of good things about this author's books. I see them pop up everywhere, so it's just like an author that I've been meaning to check out and see if it's an author that I want to read more from, maybe. So when I found this one, I figured, yes, let's just try it, see what I think. Then we have another Sarina Bowen book. This one is Him by Sarina Bowen and L. Kennedy. This is the same author duo who wrote Top Secret, which I mentioned earlier I really enjoyed when I read it, I think in August. This one is another sports romance. Hockey, I think, is a sport that we meet in this one. And like, I don't really know what this is about. I don't feel like I really need to know what this is about. I just know that I'm excited to read another book by this author duo since I love Top Secret so much. And then we have the final book that I'm going to mention in this video, and that is Feuds and Reckless Fury by Kay Webster. This one is a pretty new book actually. I think it was released maybe in June this year. It's been on my radar, so when I found it on sale I was like, yes, let's go for it. This is Enemies to Lovers, I'm pretty sure. I think there's some kind of revenge plot in here. Don't know how serious it is. It is a romance, so like, I don't know. But you know, I've heard some good things, and from what I've heard about it, it sounds intriguing, so I figured why not check it out. So yeah, that was all the book that I planned to mention in this video. As usual, there is quite a few books. I'm just excited to get to all of them, really. As usual, it's probably going to take me a while to get to most of them, but let me know if there are any of these books that you've read, that you loved, that you think I should prioritize maybe, and I can see if maybe I can get them onto a TBR pretty soon. But that's going to be it for this video. I hope that you enjoyed it. If you did, you can always hit like down below, or you can subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos from me. But that's going to be it for today. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you soon with another video. Bye!